Welcome back to my shop. My name is Guy, and today I want to talk about veneering. So let's say I want to make a door panel about 10 inches wide, 24 inches long, but I need to make two of them. Now I've got this board here. It's hard to see on camera, but it's a nice piece of curly cherry. It's about 5.5 inches wide, a little over 24 inches long. So I should just be able to resaw this and get one of the panels out of it. And that would be true. Unfortunately, I need to make two panels, and I want to have some symmetry between the left panel and the right panel inside the case. The only way to really do that is veneering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice this board about 1/16 of an inch thick and get 4 slices off it, and that'll get me both my left and right panels. I'm over here at the bandsaw, and I've got my machine set up to resaw properly. That means I've got the thrust bearings and roller bearings all set properly. My tension is set correctly, and there's a lot of videos out there on the internet that'll show you how to do that, so I'm not going to get into that here right now. Now I've got my blade set up to take a strong 1/16 of an inch. This carbide tooth tip blade has a 1/16 of an inch kerf. As you can see, I'm cutting a 1/16 of an inch plus about a 32nd of an inch, because after I cut these I need to run them through the drum sander. Well, I'm ready to go. I did make a carpenter's triangle right here so I know what order the boards have been cut in. Sometimes I use a feather board. That's typically for very tall boards, but for a board this wide, I'm just going to use a push block and hold it firmly up against the fence before the blade and push it through. I've got my 2 slices of the good cherry here, and I've also got 2 slices of not so good cherry, a lot of sapwood and really ugly cathedrals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this through the drum sander. I've got an 80 grit drum in there. I'm just going to remove enough material so I get rid of those bandsaw marks. Got the pieces out of the drum sander, and they're still a little north of a 1/16 of an inch, but that's okay. So I've got them lined back up to where the marks were, and this is how I'm going to glue them together. So now that I've got that face determined, I can take a pencil and put a triangle on here telling me that's my face, and I'll do the same to the backer veneer. So after I got my face determined, I've already jointed this edge, so all I need to do is take some blue painter's tape. I'll start at one end, get the seam nice and tight, and just stretch this tape across. I'm going to be using 1/4 inch plywood for the substrate. If you notice, the grain is running this way. That's because when I put these panels on, the grain's running this way. I want to alternate the grain patterns. So this is going to run this way and like that, and that's my sandwich. The pieces are larger than what I need, and the substrate is larger than what I need. So now that I've got this all set to go, I need to start making the cauls to clamp all this together. Now this is one of the cauls I'm going to be using. I have a total of 8 of them, and I ran it over the joiner halfway through, so I got it working like this. So when I clamp these down, one on top of another, and then have the veneer and the caul sandwiched between them, I'll get nice even pressure all the way along its face. Now this is the bottom caul. It's melamine, it's 3/4 of an inch thick. Glue won't stick to the surface, which is really nice. And it's slightly larger than this. I'll explain what these holes are for later, but those are really key to have in doing this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spread some glue on this face, put this on, flip it over, and then do the back side. I'm using Type Bond 3 for this. It gives me a little bit longer open time, and for something like this, it's perfect. So I've got a nice even surface of glue there, and I'm going to put the second piece on and roughly center it. I'm over here at my assembly table, and I've got these two things here, and these are just pieces to lift up off the bench so I can get the clamps underneath a little bit easier. So I'm going to take this one I made before, and I'm going to take another piece of melamine like this. It's going to go over the top of this, and these holes are for a couple bolts that are going to go through to hold this in place, because when I start to apply clamp pressure, it's going to want to slide around all over the place, and this will ensure it stays in one spot. So I've got my cauls laid out where I want to put them, like that. Make sure I put the pointed end down. And then just start applying the clamps. Got all the clamps on now, and I really like to use like these ones with the handles because they're one-handed and a lot easier to use, but I only have 4 of them. So I use these larger ones here, and they're a little finicky. You just have to be patient. I just want to make sure that this is flat all the way across the caul, and it is on the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to let this cook for probably overnight, 12 hours or so before I mess with it again. Well, it's all out of the clamps, and I've got it sized, and it came out perfect. It's almost exactly 3/8 of an inch. It's a little bit south of that, but not by much. And this is a nice surface that can be hand planed, it can be surface sanded, it can be scraped without any real danger of burning through the veneer, because it's a 1/16 of an inch thick. So I've used the same method on tabletops as long as 6 foot and 42 inches wide before, and haven't had any issues. You just have to make the pieces of melamine big enough and your clamping cauls big enough.